Yay, Jesus. You guys doing good? Good, good, good. He's fun, isn't he? Yeah. Well, he completely interrupted my plans. So now I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to try to summarize what I thought that I was going to be teaching for the whole morning, or if we're going to do something else. So right now I'm just stalling until I have a feeling of what we're supposed to do. It's not a bad thing to do. Yes. Remind me your name, sir. Georgie. George, not Georgie. That would be a little bit too intimate of a... George. We'll go with George. George, do you mind if I share something with you? Just a couple quick observations. One, there is a kindness that has been developed in your spirit because of your response to the Lord. And it's something that actually took time for it to develop, because there were a lot of things early on that were trying to create a hardness rather than the softness, the kindness that God actually developed in you. And that just says something about your response to how God has worked in your life and through your life and through the things that you've been through. There's a teaching gift, and I don't know that necessarily means like teaching from the stage, but an instruction and explaining, an ability to communicate things, to explain to people, and it really it finds a great expression through relationship. That you find yourself helping people to understand and even to train so that they can do things in a better way and help them to improve. And in that training gift, there actually is an operation of the word of wisdom that has popped up a few different times. And I don't know if this part of it has already happened or if this is coming. But part of that is going to be people that are going to be asking you specific questions about problems that they're having, situations that need to be unraveled, where a word of wisdom is needed. It's a consulting kind of thing and a leadership thing that's on you that is one of the expressions of that gift, because you've been faithful in the ways that it's come over time, even when you didn't realize that it was a word of wisdom until maybe afterwards. And sometimes there's been times where you never did realize, but because you've been faithful with it, that's increasing, and you are seeing it, or you will be seeing that increasing. So don't be afraid of putting yourselves in situations where you don't know the answer. Because it's not about you knowing the answer. It's about, in the situation, the Lord giving you that wisdom. And also the ability to say when you don't know. And one of the beautiful things that you actually have the humility to do that. Sometimes there's been external pressure that kind of makes you feel guilty for doing that. But your heart has the humility to do that. And so I just want to strengthen that in you and encourage that, because it's from the Lord. Does that make sense? Yeah, good. There's this beautiful thing when, one of the things about the prophetic and in the prophetic process, it's one thing to get information, but ask why. Just looking, seeing wisdom, teaching. Okay, why? What do you do with that? What is? And I'm asking the Lord, how do you use that in this person's life? How do you operate in this? And asking for more. Too many times we start off with the first thing, and we just give that little piece, but it's the further conversation with the Lord that begins to anchor it. And then as asking those questions, like that's how just starting to see how that had begun and some of the movement that had happened, that process of what God had done. And in the process of what God had done often leads to the future. And it wasn't just because I could say, okay, so this has happened, and now this probably is going to be the next thing. but there was revelation, there was piece of it. But tying that all together, it's really helpful for that process because it keeps it all anchored in what God is doing. It's not just information, right? It's not just about, oh, look how amazing you are. It's about look at what God has done, recognize what God has done, and here's some strengthening. God loves to encourage people, right? And saying, hey, you've done good with this. And recognizing when you see that somebody has done good with it, don't be afraid to tell them that. And sometimes we kind of hold back because we have the two sides. We're either trying to make people feel like they're super important and they're the best thing that ever happened, right? Or we're afraid that we're going to do that, and so we're very careful not to give them any encouragement. And both sides are wrong. There's got to be the balance of those two things in the way that it comes about, because there's the issue is not about making it fit our personality or our culture. The issue is being true to the ways of God. And it's one of the things that we've missed so often in the prophetic. We've learned a lot more about how to get revelation, and we haven't learned nearly enough about the ways of God. There's a framework to the ways of God. There are patterns. It's not like it's like every single time it happens exactly like this, but there are patterns that are true. Like one of the great patterns of Scripture is taken, blessed, broken, given. Right? So you have the crowd that comes to Jesus, and he's like, they're hungry. Well, we don't have enough money for that. Well, what do you have? Well, we got these loaves, we got these fish. And Jesus took what was there. He blessed what was there. He broke it, and then he gave it. Jesus was taken from heaven. He was blessed. This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. He was broken, then he was given. Right? We get taken from our past, from our history. We get blessed by God. We get broken so that we can be given. Recognizing these patterns, like that pattern, it just happens again and again and again and again. And so you start recognizing a couple pieces of the pattern, all of a sudden you know the questions to ask God to get the other pieces. All right, okay, so there's a blessing, there's a brokenness. So what were they taken out of? And where are they going to be given? And all of a sudden you start getting the other pieces to the revelation. Because sometimes we don't get the revelation because we're not asking the questions. God likes to answer questions. Now, he doesn't always answer the questions we want. Why is one of those questions? He doesn't have. Why did this happen? That one almost never gets an answer. But he loves to respond to those questions. And so as you're asking, I mean, I was talking the whole time, but the whole time I'm talking, I'm having this conversation with the Lord here. And going through these and asking about the process. And so recognizing those dynamics. I'm trying to think of another pattern that would be a good one. Well, how about this one? That perceived strength must be broken for real strength to be found. All right? So we could talk about Abraham, right? He is, not really a young man, but he's still, for his time period, in the prime of his life. It's nice when 75 is the prime of life. We don't get that anymore. Usually that's towards the end. But in his time, like he's going to live a significantly long life. So he's still in his prime, easily could be having children, and he gets this great promise, right? And so in his strength, he has strength that's there, but that strength has to be broken before the promise can happen. he didn't let the breaking happen yet. And so he used his strength to cause something that was not God's intention. He created Ishmael. Right? But then he got broken because Ishmael is now in the womb. And what happens? Hagar begins to act funny with Sarah. Sarah's like, this isn't okay. Get rid of her. And Abraham goes back to God, and God says, husbands, listen to this. This is really helpful. It's in the Bible. Do what your wife says. All the women are saying amen. All the guys are like, did you have to say that? And so he sends off the promise. He's broken. Right? And then he has to send off the promise, what he thought was the promise. He has to send off Ishmael again, even after Ishmael comes back. So there's this brokenness. And then there's no more possibility for children, and all of a sudden the promise happens. We go to Peter. Peter's got this great strength. He's bold. He knows what he can do. He's zealous for God. He's telling everybody what he can do for God. He's obviously the leader. God had chosen him. Like all this great thing. And he gets to the garden, and you're going to deny me 3 times. No way. I'd die for you. And within hours, he has a servant girl saying, oh, you're one of them too. And he begins to curse. I don't even know him. And the book of Luke gives this interesting little thing. It says, and Jesus looking at him. Like, do you realize that when Peter denied Jesus, Jesus was being beaten right in front of him? It wasn't like it was happening in another room. And he got to see Jesus' eyes when he denied him. And now he's broken. And he's going to give up. I'm just going to go back to fishing. Forget it. But then the Lord reveals his true strength. Right? I mean, that pattern, you can see it again and again. Joseph. Right, Joseph, he's got this gift. He's got leadership. His dad has recognized it, gives him the beautiful coat. Right, he's put him in charge of his brothers. I want you to give me reports. Tell me what's going on. And he's given reports, and it's not good. He's not using his leadership well. He's flaunting his position. He's flaunting the favor that's on his life. And then he gets sold into slavery. He gets falsely accused. He's absolutely broken. He's got nothing left. And then his true strength is able to be revealed. Right? That pattern, you can see it again and again. And so you begin to recognize when that pattern is going on in someone's life, you can help them to respond to that situation. Now, there's just a wisdom thing of being able to see this, but there's also the prophetic piece of asking for the pattern that's going on in someone's life to help them in the response. Or to know how to respond, because sometimes the help is better not to tell people. I can't tell you how many times. I'll tell you one. I'm not going to tell details because none of you would know this person, so it doesn't matter. But I was visiting at this church, and the worship leader at this particular church, very gifted, right? Very, very gifted, very anointed. And I recognized he was operating out of his own strength. And as soon as I recognized that, I'm okay, that sounds like that pattern. Jesus, what's going on? And I get this word of wisdom. So I never told him, but I go to the pastor. And I'm like, hey, by the way, in about 6 months, this guy's going to be going through a dark night of the soul. He is going to be absolutely broken, and he's going to need encouragement in that time so that he doesn't give up. If you walk with him through this, he may be able to make it through to the other side. So it wasn't about, he didn't need to know that. But somebody needed to know that to help to steward the situation, because that's what the kingdom would do. That's what God's going to be doing. And so the whole point of the prophetic is so that we can see what God is doing so that we can join in with it. Not so we can see us, so we can see what God is doing, and we get to join in with what God is doing because we're representing God. The idea of the word prophet is somebody who speaks for another. It's a representative. It's connected. It's not the same word root, but the concept is connected to the idea of an ambassador or messenger. When somebody is sent with a message, and not just a sealed scroll, it's not somebody that's delivering like that in that way, but someone that's actually given the message that then gets sent, which is why it's interesting. If you take a look in the Old Testament, sometimes prophetic people were called angels. Because the word angel just means messenger, right? There's a connection between those two. Angels aren't the type of spirits, it's the function of the spirits. There's a bunch of different types of spirits that are there. You have seraphim, you have cherubim, we have powers. There's a variety of different types of spirits, but the function is an angel. Now, not all of them are angels, so they're not all called angels. So you have this recognition. We're actually there to represent him. What is God doing in this person's life, and what part am I allowed to play? Am I allowed to play any part at all? And the knowledge then just becomes ways of recognizing what God is doing to help them respond to God. And it's not about necessarily, sometimes you're going to tell them exactly what you see, and sometimes it's just helping them to respond. Sometimes you can't tell them because it would have been inappropriate. I met these two when I had a conversation with Ian. And he's like, oh, so I know this girl, and I knew exactly which girl. But she doesn't like me. And I knew immediately that they were supposed to be married. I never said that. But I gave him some advice. Here's some ways, like, don't ruin it. Here's how you can ruin it. Right? And you don't have to give up too quickly. Like there was some encouragement. And along the way, like a little bit later in the story, they're getting ready to give up in Scotland. And the same thing, I knew that they were going to be married. And at that point, I actually knew about the timing. But I never told them. Because it would have been wrong for me to tell them. Because if I'd have told them, they would have let that be a part of the reason why they were going to do it. Which would be unfair, because they need to actually respond to the Lord. Because if they'd have gotten married because of prophetic gifting, then, anybody married? You ever realize it's not always easy? When it's not easy, guess what they would have blamed? The prophecy. Or the person that gave it. Instead of having to realize, so sometimes you get to see what's going to happen in someone's life, not so that you can tell them, but so that you can help them discover. So one of the best things that you can do as a prophetic person is to learn how to teach people where to look. Hey, would you look over there? And all that, oh, that's what it is. And they hear for themselves. But here's the problem with that. You don't look that gifted. You can look really gifted. Tell everybody what you know. And you can look really gifted. But you might actually short circuit the process. The process of transformation and the struggle to become something different, one of the worst things that you can do is help somebody out of the struggle. The idea of butterflies, when the caterpillar gets into the cocoon and they get transformed, and you can start to see in the cocoon as they're stretching and pressing against the cocoon to get out. If you help that butterfly get out, it'll die. It never develops the strength that it needs to actually be who it is. And too many times we've helped people out of the cocoons that God put them in for transformation. And now they're going to have to go through a whole nother process to be able to get to where God wanted them in the first place. We've got to be careful because the gifts that God gave are intended to be gifts to serve, not to rule. Mark chapter 10, the Gentiles lord it over each other. It should not be so among you. He who is greatest among you should be the servant of all. How can you use the strength that God has given you to serve someone else so that they can fulfill their potential in Him? And sometimes that means that you're going to have to lay down on the floor and let them walk on you so they can get a step up. Now, if we have an idea of leadership that is about lording it over, we wouldn't let anybody walk on us. We would make sure everybody knew how bad that was, how bad they were. I mean, we'd make sure we trip them up as they were trying to walk over us so that they actually couldn't get to the next place. So the kingdom is not like this world. This world is very different. Here's another one of the patterns in Scripture. John chapter 13. They're in the upper room getting ready for the Passover meal. And it says this beautiful thing. And Jesus, knowing who He was, where He was from, and where He was going, got up and took off His outer garments and wrapped Himself with a towel and washed the feet of the disciples. Like Jesus, knowing that He had come from the throne where spiritual beings that we can't even imagine were throwing themselves on their faces, crying out, holy, 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 for eons. Knowing that He had spoken the universe into existence, that everything that was made through Him, and not anything that was not made through Him. Knowing that He was the light of the world that actually is life. Knowing that He was going to be back there, seated on that throne. Took off His outer garments and wrapped a towel about Himself and washed the feet of His disciples. I mean, it's one thing. Anybody ever done a foot washing? Or had their feet washed? I mean, it's kind of not nice, but it's not that bad. Imagine the streets of Jerusalem. They didn't have sewers. They didn't have cars. The streets that they walked in, so the older buildings, if you've ever been, and some of the older buildings, you can go to places in Europe. I've been to places in Europe. I know there's more places than that. You ever notice that the buildings kind of tilt out? So the bottom is further from the street. If the street is here, the bottom is further than the next level and the next level and the next level. Do you know why they do that? Because when they would throw out the bedpan onto the street, and not just the bedpan, they didn't just use it for the bed. Anytime they needed to relieve themselves, they'd relieve themselves into the pan, and then they'd just throw it out on the street. And so they built the top floors a little bit out so it just didn't roll down the walls. And when the donkeys and the horses and the various other animals were walking through the streets, They leave stuff behind them as they're going through the streets. And they didn't wear nice closed shoes. They wore open sandals. And so you've got all of that. It's not just dust. Like, that would be nice. That's what he was cleaning up. That's what it means to be a king. That's what it means to be a king. You clean up other people's mess because of what they've walked through. When it's ugly, when it's smelly, when it's dirty. You serve those that you want to influence. You don't command them, go do this. You serve and you invite. The kingdom is not like this world. And we have built religious systems around world systems, and we're operating according to the elemental spirits of this world rather according to the kingdom of God, and wondering why there's so many people hurt by church. There's so many people hurt by ministries. Because we're, like Gentiles, lording it over each other instead of serving one another. The more anointed that you are, the more you should be serving others, not the more others should be serving you. If you find that because you're growing in your destiny and your calling, that more and more people are serving you, be scared. Because that's not kingdom. And it will not last for long. You may find that you've gotten your whole reward here. A number of years ago, I was in prayer. Getting myself a drink. I should have opened it before I started. I was in prayer and was no longer on the chair that I was sitting in. I was in a room, and I knew immediately that it was a room in heaven. And there was a number of angels, I don't know, handful, dozen, something like that. I didn't take the time to count them. But they were setting up the room. There were tables, and they were just setting up chairs around the tables. And so I just did what I always did. I just started putting chairs around the tables. And when all the chairs were around the tables, they were all leaving. And the last one that was leaving, as he was walking out the door, he stops and he turns around and he looks at me. He goes, "Around here, you're known as a servant." It's one of the most precious experiences I've ever had. Because I knew, in that moment, I knew that that was one of the highest compliments anybody can get in heaven, because it's the most like Jesus. Are you known for being a servant, or are you known for being anointed? For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. They're taking advantage of me. Yeah. Yeah, they will. They did him. You did him. And you've taken advantage of Jesus. All of us have. That's just the reality. We shouldn't have. Yeah, it's true. And hopefully we won't as much tomorrow as we did yesterday, but when Jesus was sending out his disciples, he said, "I send you out as sheep among wolves." Do you know what sheep are to wolves? lunch. Mutton sandwich. Here's the problem. You can defend yourself or God can defend you. You get to choose. You can fight to be recognized or you can let heaven celebrate you. Your choice. You can make sure everybody knows what you are and calls you by the right title, or you can let heaven tell you who you are. Your choice. But you can't have both. You can't have both. It is about service. Yay, I still haven't gotten to my notes. Probably not. That's all good. I had a really good message. You would have liked it. Just. What's your name? No, right here in the green. Armandi. I know I didn't roll my R very well, but that's an interesting thing for me. It sounds weird when I try. So, do you mind if I share something with you? Wonderful. So, the first thing that I notice when I look at you is there is a sweetness to your spirit. You have a servant heart. You have no problem serving and helping others. There's a gift of hospitality that's on you where you actually make room for people. You make people feel comfortable. And I don't know how much this has happened, but that's one of the ways that your prophetic gift operates is in recognizing how to make different people feel comfortable in different situations. And it doesn't always get recognized as a prophetic gift, but that is the Lord leading you to serve others as he would serve them. And it's a really beautiful thing to him. In your sweetness, there is a sword hidden in your heart because you will say what needs to be said, even when it's hard for you. And sometimes you've pulled back from that because you're afraid of how people would take it. But there's a sharpness to the gift of the Lord that is within you because the discernment that you have is a strong gift. And there have been circumstances and situations that have tried to make you ashamed of your discernment. And you've actually asked yourself if you're just being judgmental, or asked other people if you're just being judgmental or just being critical. And while there may have been moments of that, it actually is that gift of discernment that God has given you. And when it's not motivated out of fear, it's not critical. And so one of the keys for you is learning how to overcome the fear and turn it back to trust. Because that's what's going to help you. It's not about the discernment. It's about what operates out of it. And it's the same thing with your hospitality gift. Sometimes you've allowed fear to motivate that because you were trying to keep people around when the Lord was moving them out. And that created greater problems in the long run. And learning to recognize when it's fear and when it's real love, it's what the Lord is asking you to do, it is going to be absolutely key. Because the enemy tried to mark you with fear even when you were young. When you were a child, the nightmares, the night terrors that you experienced. And I think there were some circumstances in waking life as well that started to kind of create this sense of fear. And you've not given yourself completely to it. You're not a fearful person, but it haunts you sometimes. And the Lord's just pointing that out, not to say you haven't done good. You've done well with that, but stay vigilant with that because that's really key to the fruitfulness that you have in what he's given you to do. Does that make sense? Do you work with kids? No. Do you have kids? No. All right. you do have I'm not saying what this is going to look like, but you do have a mothering, nurturing spirit that's about you. And whether that is heart kids or physical kids, whatever way that's going to come out, you're going to be very good at being patient with their process because of who you are, and really nurturing hearts so that people have a stability to actually believe in themselves and to know that they're cared for, because you can care for people that others would say don't deserve to be cared for. And because of that, and because that actually comes from the Lord, it releases something into their life that is key to their identity and who they are. So that's cool. Yay. You're welcome. Does that all make sense to you? Good. Good, good, good. Yay, Jesus. In this, like the 3 or 4 of you that's right around this section of floor, have one of you been experiencing angelic activity in your home? Or angelic activity? Like maybe in dreams? Okay, that's you. Okay, well, I can see the movement of the angelic right there. It was next to you, but I couldn't tell if it was for you or if it was for somebody, because it was kind of in this area right here. So that's why I was trying to figure out. Yay. That's amazing. What's your name? Vanessa. So do you mind if I share something else with you? I already shared something with you, so I might as well ask for the rest of it. Here's the thing. Prophecy doesn't give you the right to tell somebody something. You get to ask whether or not they want it. And if they don't, let it go. That's their choice. They will get to stand before God. You will stand before God about you being faithful with what he gave you. But if somebody doesn't accept it, like Jesus didn't tell the disciples, hey, if you go to a place and people don't like you, stay there until you convince them that you're actually anointed and you have the truth. No, just shake the dust off of your feet. Go on to the next place. When you find the place where it lands, because if you keep on trying to force favor, you'll never find favor. Favor is discovered, not manufactured. Anyways, that's why I like to ask permission. It's 2 different reasons. One, it lets me know in the response, because usually people are going to say yes, but how they say yes tells me how willing they are to receive. And so I won't look too close if they're not actually willing to receive. I'll give them a little something, and that'll be good. But if there's a genuine yes, one, I will have the ability to go a little bit further. And the other thing is, it'll actually, them saying yes is them. If you receive a prophet in the name of a prophet, it has nothing to do with the title. Like Irma's a doctor. She meets with people, and not everybody that she meets with remembers to call her Dr. Irma. You got a new name. If they do what she says, they're going to get the same benefit whether they call her doctor or not. That's not talking about using a name. It's just saying recognizing with something that's there. And so when somebody gives you permission, they've received. And so now it opens them up to receive not just the information from the word, but what's behind the word, the spirit that's behind the word. So that's another reason why it's always good to ask for permission and then get permission before you give something. So there's strategy behind these things that's going on. We need to learn how to do things according to kingdom, not according to culture. Vanessa. One, thank you. Your prayers have affected so many people. You have helped people come out of addiction. You've helped marriages be saved. You have caused people to step into destiny. You've actually taken people out of paths that would have derailed what God had planned for them. And you didn't force it through your prayers. You weren't trying to force anything, but your heart of compassion caused you to cry out to the Father, and He heard. And people don't even realize the effect that you've had in their lives. Some do. And obviously people, because as soon as I said something about your prayers, I heard the vocal witness, right? So I know you're known for prayers just from that. But there's more fruit that you've had than what people realize. And you've done it in secret, and you haven't done it for attention, which is why heaven is celebrating you. Because you have been faithful. And you have been faithful with the Lord's family, and He has heard your prayers for your family. And there's already things in action, in process, that are going on, where there's situations and invitations being released that people will have to choose, but invitations that are being released in your family because of your prayers and because of your faithfulness. So that's a beautiful thing. The angelic activity is with you because of the purity of your love for Jesus. You love Him. Yeah, and they're attracted to that. And He has made sure that you've been watched over and protected. It feels like it might have been a couple years ago. I'm not sure what it was, but there was something. It was almost, I don't even know if you'll remember it because nothing really happened, but there was a scare. It was a demonic assignment that was sent against you because of witchcraft, prayers of the darkness. And the reason for it was because of the fruit of your prayers. But because of the angelic help, it was not allowed to actually land. And so it's like the idea of something that was intended to, like a baseball bat that was swung to take your head off, but instead it kind of messed up your hair. Right? Like that idea, like that what was intended was much worse, but the Lord has protected you. And the reason I'm saying that, I don't even know if you realize what that situation was. The reason I'm saying that is so that you will have that expectation of protection. You are not alone. I know you know that you're not alone, but you need to know that you're not alone. And He's with you. Yeah. Do you have a close family member that's already with the Lord and that walked with the Lord? Yeah, the great cloud of witnesses. Yes. You are being watched over. And we do not understand the prayers of those that have gone before us and how they affect us. But the prayers that you sowed into Him are being sowed back into you. You are not alone. Yeah. God bless you. Okay. Yay, Jesus. He's so much fun, isn't He? trying to sort between ideas, between pulls and assignment. Sometimes it's not as easy as I would like it to be. You know, one of the things that happens when there are prophetic words that are given, especially in a corporate setting like this, there's, a few things. One, not everybody often gets a word. Right? And that's okay. We celebrate with one another. When one grieves, we all grieve. When one celebrates, we all celebrate. Like there's this something, because we are one in the Spirit, and when one person gets blessed, it actually releases an atmosphere of blessing that's released into the room. And so you can grab hold of that. Well, one of the other things is sometimes while one person is getting a message, there will be phrases or there'll be concepts that are in that the Lord will actually pull and cause it to land in other places. It's not the exact word in the exact way, but there's pieces of it. And like specifically, when I mentioned to her about the great cloud of witnesses, 4 or 5 of you, your spirit said, for me too? Like that, for some there was a question, for some there was a yes, right? But that landed in different ways in different people in the room. If that happens and you're feeling that, just go with it. Ask the Lord, wow, okay, so Lord, you're speaking to me. Confirm that. And if you're feeling his spirit stirring and saying, well, that's for you too, trust it. Like he's actually big enough to do that. And the other thing that happens is when the prophetic spirit begins to come, like the Lord starts speaking directly to some of your spirits. Now, an easy way to short circuit that is to turn into audience mode and start paying attention to what's going on and maybe being jealous because I really want a word. Right? Instead of continuing that engagement with the Lord. And it's not about having hunger. Asking the Lord for a word, you can actually, you can ask for that. He really does enjoy hunger. He loves to feed hunger. Right? But keeping your spirit engaged with the Spirit, you'll start getting revelation. And sometimes it'll actually be something that gets deposited into your spirit. Sometimes you'll actually know what the revelation is. And then sometimes there's a little seed that over the next couple hours or possibly tonight, that it'll start to wake up and you'll hear message directly to you out of it. And so when there's genuine prophetic activity, let your expectation rise up into the moment. Now, young lady here in the back, yes. What's your name? Catherine. Do you mind if I share something with you, Catherine? Wonderful. So, couple quick things. Earlier, did you kind of ask, I'd really like to get a prophetic word in your heart? Yeah, okay. Just making sure that I was actually hearing that. So here's the couple things. One, there's a lot of favor in your life. This is a good thing and this is a bad thing. And I want to tell you both because one, there's something that you can respond to. There's something you have to be careful with. And if you learn how to be careful with it, it's going to save you a lot of heartache. The one thing to respond to is making sure when people are giving you favor, right? They're offering, they're opening up doors, they like you, there's connection, there's influence, all of that stuff. Ask the Lord if it's from him. If it's from him, let it have its way. Because the other thing that happens is when there's favor on someone, people get attracted to the favor, not because they're supposed to be giving favor, but because they want favor. And they begin to pretend to give favor because they're trying to get something back. And there's going to be manipulation that's going to come with that. And if you keep your eyes on him, you'll be able to recognize the difference. If you just pay attention to how it feels, because it feels good when people give you favor, even when it's fake. If you pay attention to him, you'll be able to recognize what you should receive and what you didn't. But if you open up your heart to the wrong people, it's going to end up in heartache. It's going to end up in betrayal. You'll get down a road and then you'll realize that there was a price for what was offered that was supposedly for free. So this is going to save you a lot of pain. So hold on to that. Because part of that favor, one, that there's a leadership gift that's on you. There's financial favor that's on you. It's not going to be, not that it's always is like money just drops into your lap, but it's not going to be difficult for you to find ways to make money. I don't know if that's actually starting businesses, but there's definitely a leadership thing that's involved with that, leading teams. But you also have this visionary thing where you can see potential. And you can dream up of things, and when you talk about it, other people are like, oh, I could see that. That's awesome. That's that leadership connected with favor, because that's how you begin to draw the right people, keeping the discernment as the people come, as to why they're coming. But as you draw the right people, you'll be able to build teams. Now, that's in multiple places. Because there's two sides to the leadership. There's the leadership that's going to be for teams. It's going to be about business, whatever that realm is. And I'm trying to be careful with the word business, because I'm not sure. It's not like, I don't know that it's necessarily you having a business as much as it is a secular, and that's not a negative thing, a secular emphasis that would draw and would be financial lucrative. So it's a form of business, but not necessarily that you're going to start a manufacturing plant or like that type of thing, right? So just be careful with the word. Don't let it become too small, because you already have a feel for some of that. You already have a feel for what that's going to look like. But the other side is in the spiritual realm. Because you have a hunger for certain things of the Spirit. You have a hunger for, one for the prophetic, I mean, that we've already seen that. But there's a hunger for wisdom and understanding the ways of God. And there's a hunger for Scripture, for knowledge. And those things, there's also going to be favor and leadership in the church, where you're going to be seeing vision, potential in God. People are going to gather around that vision, and they're going to come with. And it feels like these strategic assignments. It's almost like the idea of having a small squad of soldiers that go into a place to accomplish something. Like really training and developing and equipping people. This is not something that's going to happen right away. You have not developed enough in who you are to be able to develop others. But you're going to find people around you that are beyond. Don't be afraid to ask for favor from people of another generation. You might be surprised at their answer. Don't think of yourself as not deserving or one that wouldn't fit. I don't know how, that's not the right words, but the concept is there. Because there's a mentoring and there's a growth thing that can happen with you to develop that thing inside of you. And if it develops well, you're going to find yourself being sent to strategic places to accomplish kingdom purposes here as well as in other nations. Yeah, and one of the ways that the two streams of leadership and favor are going to come together is some of the stuff that you'll be doing in other places is actually getting something started, getting it launched, and then leaving it for other people to manage. You're a catalyst. And one of the things that will make it difficult for you is if you take on a false responsibility for things, you will stay too long in something that you started. And part of you will begin to kind of go to sleep because you need the new, you need the adventure, you need that growth. Be careful not to go too quickly that you don't establish it well enough to maintain, but recognize that at some point in time, you're going to have to leave things that you birthed so that you can go birth something else. And don't be afraid of that. Because if you let yourself get stuck in one thing and one thing only, that part of you, it'll just kind of go to sleep. And it won't bear the fruit that you're intended to bear fruit. So don't feel bad when you feel, it kind of comes out sometimes, I'm bored, like I need something new, right? Recognizing the difference between commitments so you fulfill your commitments, get it well enough and strong enough that it can maintain. But once it's there and somebody else can handle it, don't be afraid to move on. And you may still have input, but you don't have to necessarily be there. You're a starter, not a manager. Does that make sense? Okay. Cool. You're welcome. Bless you.